Do you ever feel like you need a break from it all? Your reality, your environment, or the way things are? An escape from the exhausting, yet constant grind. Or maybe you're in a phase of, what the hell am I doing with my life? The good news is that you are not alone. There is nothing unusual about feeling this way. These seasons show up for everyone at some point. And what they do is they blur the line between rest and avoidance. And if you are a goal-getter, it's even harder to tell the difference. But if you keep watching, you'll not only learn to tell the difference between rest and avoidance, but also how to give yourself a break when you need to. On the flip side, we can learn how to identify if you are in a state of avoidance. If you are feeling like this, there are two forces that we as humans fundamentally have wired into us in our background. We have away from pain and towards pleasure. And somewhere along that line, rest can start to feel like it's an away from pain option. Let me explain. This away from pain usually manifests as away from fear. We become afraid of what happens if we stop, if we let ourselves fall behind or lose momentum or miss our targets for ourselves. In the words of Brené Brown, avoidance will make you feel less vulnerable in the short run, but it will never make you less afraid. And this is why it is so important to identify whether you are in a state of avoidance or preventing yourself from getting the genuine rest that you need. Especially in business, it can feel like everything depends on you, that you have to be switched on all the time, and the moment you take a break, it's all over. But that belief is exactly what keeps us stuck in this very exhausting cycle. So how do you know which is which? Here's the simplest way to tell them apart. Rest restores you. It creates a space in your mind for you to return with more clarity than you had before. Avoidance does the opposite. Even when you're technically doing nothing, it keeps running in the background. The challenges that you are facing end up still being open with the tension playing in your mind, like they just keep looping. Now, don't get me wrong, you can have a very busy mind, a full plate, and feel stressed without avoiding your aspirations. But it is likely that avoidance will have that tension building, and this is the avoidance that we're concerned with. So here's a good sign to pay attention to. If you stop, do you feel more restored? Or do you feel like the same heaviness is sitting in the background, whispering that you still are not facing what needs to be faced? Because the body knows the difference before the mind admits it. We often use language to justify what we're doing. We might hear thoughts like, I need to switch off. I'm protecting my peace. Now is not the right time. And sometimes those things are completely true, but the mind is clever. It can build a beautiful explanation for something that is actually fear, uncertainty, or doubt in our abilities. This is why we cannot rely on the stories we tell ourselves alone. We have to look at the signals underneath it. When your system needs genuine rest, there is usually a kind of fullness to the stop. Your focus is thin, your emotional range is reduced, you're not interested in one specific task, you are depleted more broadly. Whereas avoidance is a lot more selective. You suddenly have the energy to clean the kitchen, answer emails, reorganize your notes, scroll, research, or plan, just not the thing that you're meant to be doing. So rest sounds a lot more like, I don't have the capacity to do this, whereas avoidance sounds more like, I don't want to do this. And those are not the same thing. If you feel worse after a break, it probably wasn't rest. And this is the simplest test. When you stop and walk away, what happens next? If it was rest, then you should be returning with at least one of the following: more steadiness, more clarity, and more willingness to access the next step in your skill development. Not necessarily a huge motivational breakthrough from a little nap, but at least clearer than where you were before. But if you come back feeling more anxious, more guilty, or even more avoidant than you were when you left for the break, then it probably wasn't restorative. It was probably delaying what you've been putting off. And putting things off has its own cost. It keeps you in an open loop that your nervous system burns energy in the background. It's just like thinking about it constantly. So real rest has an intention. One of the clearest differences between rest and avoidance has everything to do with the honesty inside your thoughts. You will hear more of these types of thoughts when you need rest. I'm tired. My thinking is muddy. I cannot do this tonight. I will do it tomorrow. It is a conscious decision that sits in alignment with the body. Avoidance is usually vaguer. I will do it later. I don't feel ready yet. I will start tomorrow. I will come at it with a better headspace. The language often hides a lack of decision making. So the question to ask yourself, if you're unsure which is which, is if I felt completely rested, would I still be putting this off? Because sometimes what we call rest is actually self-protection from our underlying fears. Now here is the layer that makes this all more complicated. The rest and avoidance question does not exist in a vacuum. It depends on where you are on the journey towards your goals. Our goals move through phases, and we're more than likely going to confuse rest and avoidance and give up altogether during the transitions between them. And understanding which phase you are in might be the key to finally giving yourself a break. Have a think about which phase you are in. We will start with phase 1, novelty. At first, everything is exciting and it may feel like a little while since you felt that, especially if you're tired or in avoidance, but often this phase is the exciting phase. It's the one that gets us started. The energy feels effortless because you're not pushing yourself. The goal is pulling you towards that journey. Nobody had to motivate you because the energy was just there. Over time though, you have probably experienced, like many times before, that novelty tends to wear off. The comedian Kanan Gill explains this novelty cycle perfectly. You get it, you have it, and the excitement fades.
Very exciting to get stuff. But as soon as you get something, you just have it. Yeah. That's how much fun there is in life. Yeah. And thin sliver between hypothetical and reality. Everything you get becomes have. Like, I love buying stuff, okay? So new phone comes out, I get it right away. I'm like, new phone, gonna get a new phone. As soon as you get a phone, you just have a phone. It's got 4K, 120 FPS. Yeah, but I'm still me. Now I have to get a screen protector. Getting amazing, having sucks. Worst, losing. Yeah, because when you lose something, then you miss having it. Then having it seems so awesome.
So the same thing happens with your goals too. We know we need to persevere with our goals. There's a logical sense of awareness to that. But knowing that and feeling it are very different things. Because the moment excitement gives way to repetition, the reward dynamic changes. And suddenly the goal that once pulled you forward starts to feel like something you have to push yourself to do. Then the reality of building it sets in. The admin, the slow growth, the content, and you have to keep showing up and creating, and it might not come as fast as you had planned. The dream is the same, but the feeling is completely different. So what do you do when the excitement has gone? The answer has everything to do with how well your challenges are meeting your current skill level. As we enter phase 2, the skill versus challenge phase. So the excitement has faded, the repetition feels, repetitive, and we wonder if there is something wrong with us, the goal, or both. But if we're finding things are too challenging, this is when we see our need for rest, or our tendency to avoid come in play. And there is actually a model that explains why. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi spent his career studying what keeps people engaged in what they do, the sense of flow. What he found was that we stay engaged when the balance between the challenge in front of us and our current skill level are in alignment. We enter a flow state. But when the challenge is too low for our skills, we get bored. And what do we do as humans when we get bored? You guessed it, we chase novelty again. A new goal, a new strategy, or a new version of the thing that we already have. And just like that, we're back at the beginning and phase 1 starts all over again. When the challenge is too high, we get anxious. If the challenges outpace where you are right now, it feels stressful. And when something feels like that, your nervous system does not care about your goals. It just wants you to keep safe. Your body will literally shut down And this is when people will enter avoidance. The goals either bore them to tears or make them so anxious that their monkey mind runs away with their motivation. So to fix this is simpler than it sounds. If you're feeling bored, it's a sign to add more challenge. If you're feeling anxious, well, you need to bring down that challenge and build the foundational skills first. We can see from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi that the flow model it's not a destination. It will always require constant recalibration. So if you have navigated the novelty phase, you have found your challenge to skill ratio, you're doing the reps, and then your mind starts serving up a fresh plate of food. We enter phase 3, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, the food factor. When the novelty wears off, it's obvious, but food is sneaky. It doesn't like to reveal itself. It often creeps in and is very convincing in its voices in our mind. They sound like reason. You might hear thoughts like, am I even cut out for this? What am I putting all this effort in for? It might not work. Everyone seems to have it figured out. Why don't I? So these are some of the thoughts, the racket that you hear inside your mind. And it isn't a sign that anything's wrong. If anything, it's actually a sign that you are further along enough to start seeing your goals as actually a real possibility. And that scares us. But here is what foods do if you let them run wild. They pull your attention away from the present and into a future that has not happened yet. You are no longer working on your goals, you are managing an imaginary catastrophe that may or may not happen. More like may not. And these thoughts are harder to argue with. And if you try, the louder they get. So we must acknowledge them, acknowledge the fear, name it, and bring our focus into the next small step in front of us, because action and evidence are the real antidotes to these elements. That's what gets the mind to settle, the evidence that that is not true. So what happens if we give in to our fears, uncertainties, and doubts? Like, what happens? Well, in comes phase 4, self-sabotage. Here is where our foods stop being thoughts and start becoming our behaviors. When we believe our foods long enough, we act on them. The habits that are working get dropped. We find reasons to hold back before a breakthrough. We tell ourselves we are being realistic, but in reality, we're retreating. Self-sabotage is not a conscious decision. It is from our emotional center, and it takes the control. And if you want to understand more about how this actually happens inside the brain, I went deeper on that in another video that I'll link below, where I go into the science of self-sabotage. And this is the phase where rest and avoidance become almost impossible to tell apart, because we're pulled in a direction that feels justified. The exhaustion is real, the resistance is real, but underneath it, if we're honest, so is the fear. The moment you catch yourself pulling back for no logical reason from your goals, get curious rather than critical. Ask yourself, what am I actually afraid of here? Because rest is not the opposite of progress. This is a point I really want to drive home, because we need rest. The point of rest is not to escape our aspirations. It's a restorative fuel, the kind your body needs to function and return to a better state. We cannot feel good all the time, but what we can do is maintain an honest relationship with our energy. And sometimes that means stopping. Sometimes that means continuing. Sometimes that means admitting we're not tired, we're afraid. And once you can tell that difference, you stop letting the two become confused. You stop pushing when you need care. That's all for today. May you find that difference in definition for yourself. And I think it's just such an important thing for us to really think about, because we're in a fast-paced world and rest is becoming a luxury. Well, no, it's the operations where everything else comes from. And avoidance, well, perhaps it's breaking things down and working out what your skill to ratio is. And you stop hiding when you need courage, because sometimes we're not afraid of failing. We're afraid of succeeding. Rest well, move bravely, and know the best of opportunities live beyond novelty.